Welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 1, Section 6 PowerPoint. Section 6 is about Earth and the Sun. So today's learning target is that students will be able to use their knowledge of the tilt of the Earth and the hemispheres to figure out what season it is in a specific city on a given day. So we're going to be able to be given a day and a city and use our knowledge to figure out what season it is. Spring, winter, summer, fall. Our success criteria, or how we know that we've reached our learning target, is the accurate completion of Section 6, which is page 8, found in the student workbook. The moving Earth. So the Earth moves around the Sun in a circle, and we call this circle an orbit. So the Earth orbits the Sun. One trip around the Sun is called a revolution, and this takes about 365.25 days. You might better know a revolution as a year. As Earth rotates, it spins on its axis. An axis is an imaginary line that runs from the North Pole through the Earth all the way down to the South Pole. The spinning motion of Earth is called rotation, much like when you might spin a basketball on your finger or spin a bowling ball at the bowling alley. This is a rotation. Earth makes one full rotation every 24 hours. So rotation is actually a day. So the side that's facing the sun, it's daytime, and the side that's facing away from the sun is in nighttime. So the Earth's tilt creates the seasons. So Earth's axis is tilted, and you can actually see a picture of that tilt down on the bottom part of your screen, where that line's not straight up and down, but actually kind of goes a little bit to the side. It's at a 23.5-degree angle. So the northern and the southern hemispheres receive different amounts of sunlight, and this is what creates Earth's seasons. So we'll kind of take a deeper dive into that here and talk about how the different amounts of sunlight create the different seasons for the northern and the southern hemispheres. So the northern hemisphere summer is when it's tilted toward the sun. So when the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, it gets more sunlight, giving it longer and hotter days. The northern hemisphere's winter, however, is when the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. When this happens, it gets less sunlight and it's shorter and colder days. So the tropics, circles, and zones. So the Tropic of Cancer is the northernmost point where the sun beats straight down all the time. We actually had to label this back a couple of sections ago, and the Tropic of Cancer, if you follow my laser pointer, is this line right here, right above the word tropical zone. So it's this one right here, and the sun beats straight down on it all the time. Now that doesn't mean that it's always daytime, it just means that when the sun is shining, it's shining straight down in that spot. The Tropic of Capricorn is the southernmost point where the sun beats straight down all the time. So right here, right underneath the bottom tropical zone. The area between these two lines is called the tropical zones, and that's why you see the words written, tropical zone. This tropical zone, or these tropical zones, receive lots of sunshine and are hot all year round. There's lots of rainfall, and they really have no winter season, or rather, it never really gets cold there like it does in Michigan. The Arctic Circle is the farthest northern point where the sun doesn't shine at all for 1 day a year. Again, you had to label this and the other circle that we'll talk about here in a second in a previous section. But the sun doesn't shine at all in the Arctic Circle for an entire day once a year. There's also the Antarctic Circle, which is the farthest southern point where the sun doesn't shine at all for 1 day a year. And the area between these circles and the North and South Pole, these are called the polar zones. Polar zones receive little direct sunlight, and they're cold most of the year. The areas in between the tropical and polar zones, so the yellow text on our picture, these are called temperate zones. So in temperate zones, they lack temperature extremes. It's not super hot, but it's also not super cold. The summers are normally pretty warm and the winters are pretty cool. And it just kind of depends exactly where you are for how warm or how cold. Michigan actually falls in a temperate zone, so we're not in the tropics, but we're also not in the polars. Now this diagram here, this is probably the most important thing that we're going to look at today, because you're going to be using this diagram in your homework. So you really want to pay attention to this. You may need to come back to it to see exactly what information is on it. This can also be found in your book. So we look at the top Earth, and this is about at March 20th. So March 20th of the year, the sun is shining down on the equator. On March 20th, spring begins in the northern hemisphere and fall begins in the southern hemisphere. So we can see that when it's one season in the north, it's the opposite season in the south, and vice versa. Now, all the way from March 20th up until June 21st, it was spring in the north and fall in the south. So any day that fell in between March 20th and June 21st, it was spring in the northern hemisphere. But in June 21st, the sun shines on the Tropic of Cancer, and this signals summer beginning in the northern hemisphere and winter beginning in the southern hemisphere. Now, every day from June 21st to September 22nd, it was summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere. But as soon as September 22nd came, the sun shines straight down on the equator again, and this begins fall in the northern hemisphere and spring in the southern hemisphere. As the Earth continues to rotate around the sun, from September 22nd to December 22nd, it is fall in the north and spring in the south. But as soon as December 22nd comes, the sun shines on the Tropic of Capricorn, and this starts winter in the north and summer in the south. And then you can see that moving from December 22nd to March 20th, it again changes, and spring starts in the north and fall starts in the south on March 20th. Now your assignment is to complete page 8 in your workbook using the questions provided by Mr. Bragdon. They can also be found on the classroom website, www.mrbragdonsclassroom.weebly.com. Make sure that you are reading the questions carefully and you are reading all of the questions and you are doing everything it asks you to. Your answers need to be on the map and they need to be placed in the correct spot. There are also 2 videos located under this one. A video from Bill Nye the Science Guy about the seasons, and a song, the Seasons song, that may help you to remember some of the information in this.